What's up, everybody? We are here for arthropod notes. We are capping off our invertebrates today. You're going to learn about arthropods and echinoderms. So you can look at this picture of Mr. Krabs and you can see that an arthropod must include crabs, hence why he is there. So if you're a SpongeBob fanatic, that should make some sense. So arthropods have a hard outer covering. Just like Mr. Krabs, he has that shell on the outside of his body. If you've ever eaten shrimp or crabs, you know that you have to break open the shell in order to get to the meat on the inside, or lobsters. Any of those are really good examples of an arthropod because they have the hard parts of their body on the outside. They have segmented bodies, so you should recognize that word because we use the word segmented with annelids or worms. The segmented worms were the earthworms, and you could see the different rings or parts of their body. So with these guys here, think of Mr. Krabs. It has a face, and it has a body, and it has legs that can bend just like yours. So the segmented bodies means they just have separate body parts. They do have pairs of jointed appendages. So jointed just means bendable, and appendages is just a really long word for legs. So just like your legs, you have a hip, you have a knee, and you have an ankle. You can bend your leg in 3 different places. It's the same thing with crabs. They have something that's kind of like a hip, and they have something that's kind of like a knee, and they have something that's kind of like an ankle. If you've ever eaten crab, you know that there's 3 sections that you got to get the meat out of if you're trying to eat like snow crabs. Okay, so another example here is the legs, the wings, antenna. Those are all like different examples of bendable appendages. So wings are also bendable. They can tuck away for certain animals because arthropods are going to include insects as well. So a lot of insects, think of a ladybug. She can tuck her wings away and keep them nice and safe when she's just crawling around. Spiders and crabs are related in this group. So I hate spiders, but we're going to talk about them just for a second. So you can see here in the ant picture, he's got a head, he's got a body, and he's got a butt region, and all of his legs are bending. You can see how they all have different segments. Same thing up here with this guy. You can see he's got this segment, and this segment, and this segment. Okay, all of his legs can bend so he can scurry along the beach and stay away from predators. 75% of all animals on Earth are arthropods. So there are 1.6 million animals. 75% of those animals are going to be bugs or crabs. So that's kind of gross if you're not into bugs, which I'm not. Okay, the hard outside covering is called an exoskeleton or an outside skeleton. So just think of a sign that's near the outside of a building. It's going to say exit. And when you exit, you're on the outside. So that's how I want you to remember this. Exoskeleton means outside skeleton. So think of it this way. When you squish a bug, you hear a crunch because you're breaking through their exoskeleton. If I would step on your leg or your arm, which I will not do because I like my job, I wouldn't hear a crunch because I'm stepping on your squishy part. I'm stepping on your skin and your muscle. But when I go to squish the bug that's crawling around my house, I immediately hear a crunch because of his or her exoskeleton. So if you do watch SpongeBob at all, you know that Mr. Krabs has a couple episodes where he does molting. He is replacing his exoskeleton. So the problem here, and here's a picture of Mr. Krabs, is because their bones are on the outside, they are limited to how big they can grow. Okay, think of it, I'm trying to think here. Think of it like a jacket, okay? When you're little, you get a jacket and you go outside and you play in the snow. But then you start to get a little bigger and the jacket kind of doesn't cover all of your arms, or maybe it doesn't zip anymore. So then you need to go buy a new jacket, a little bit bigger. And then you go out and you play in the snow and the rain, and eventually a couple years later, it gets too small again. It doesn't zip, the hood doesn't fit right, and it just doesn't look so good. So you have to go buy a new jacket. That's basically what happens here, is these guys grow, and because their bones are on the outside, they actually get rid of them, and they grow new bones. bones. So you can see here with a cicada, you've probably found cicada shells hanging on trees and stuff. This guy is super duper soft right now, very vulnerable. So he's leaving his exoskeleton behind. In a few days, he will have protected himself again with a new exoskeleton. But for right now, he is kind of in danger, and he has to be careful about predators a little bit more than usual. And they do have a simple brain. Obviously, Mr. Krabs is completely focused on money, so he's got a little bit of a brain. So we have crustacea, we have arachnids, we have insects like this guy here. Okay, so crustacea are going to be crabs, lobsters, those kind of things. Arachnids are spiders, hence the word arachnophobic. You're afraid of spiders. And then there's insects, which is everything else. Beetles and stink bugs and lightning bugs and all kinds of other bugs that live in my house, and I don't like them. Ugh. So insects are extremely successful. Like we said at the beginning, 75% of all animals on Earth are arthropods, most of those being insects. So they have a couple adaptations that have helped them. They can fly. That's super duper helpful. It's really hard to eat a bug. Let's say you're a bird. It's really hard to eat a bug if it's flying away from you. Okay, so flying is awesome. It allows them to migrate to different areas. It allows them to go up high and get away from predators. It's just a really good adaptation to have. They do have that exoskeleton, so if something does catch them, they might have a hard time breaking through the exoskeleton. Think of different bugs when you squish them. When you squish a lightning bug, it doesn't really give too much of a sound because they don't have a very thick exoskeleton. But think of a stink bug or a ladybug. When you squish those guys, whoo, that thing snaps, it crackles, it pops, just like Rice Krispies, okay? So they all have different adaptations for how thick that exoskeleton is. And obviously a thicker exoskeleton is going to provide more armor, just like a knight, when back in the day when they used to have knights in shining armor. You want to protect your whole body in the armor so that you don't get stabbed or sworded to death back in the day. They are small. This is really good adaptation. The smaller you are, the harder it is to catch. Okay, think about if a little gnat, a little fruit fly is flying around your house. Those things, I feel like they can live for years, even though they don't, because they're so stinking tiny, I can't squish them. Okay, so the smaller, the most likely better off you're going to be. And they have a very short lifespan. And you might say, Miss Riddle, now that makes no sense. Okay, having a short lifespan, I know we haven't talked about this too much, but as a whole, but like the whole point of being alive for any species, whether it's a mushroom, a bacteria, a plant, an animal, the whole point of being alive is to pass on your DNA. That's it. It's to grow up, make a baby, and then you can die, and you can be successful, and you can wear your little crown and say, I did it. So having a short lifespan most likely allows them to live their full lives. So flies live about 2 weeks. That's it. So in those 2 weeks, they have to be born, find some food, find a mate, kiss one time, make a baby. That's it. That's all they have to do. And then they can die, and they had a successful life. So that's the whole thing we're looking at here. How have insects been successful? Having a short lifespan allows them to just eat, make a baby, and die. And then they're good to go. So I know it's a little weird to think about, but insects are super important. So as much as I'm joking around here about killing all the bugs, which I really do, they really do help out a lot of people on Earth. So they are a really good food source for many people. And some of you are thinking here, sitting here thinking, Miss Riddle, I will never, ever eat a bug. I understand that. America, we typically do not eat bugs too often unless you get like a cricket in the middle of a lollipop at a museum. But some countries actually have too many people that they can't feed them with pigs and cows and vegetables. They actually need to farm bugs. So that's what they do. They grow little, all kinds of critters that they like to eat. They eat scorpions, they eat millipedes, centipedes, some people eat spiders. A lot of them eat crickets and grasshoppers. Maybe I can find a cool video about people eating bugs, because I really do think it's important. They're a huge source of protein. Everyone knows protein as being in cows and pig meat and all that stuff, but animals, just like insects, have just as much protein in them. So you can stir fry them, you can fine grain them down into flour, you can use cricket flour to make cookies and stuff. I know in college we had chocolate-covered crickets. I did not eat one. It grossed me out too much, but everyone else said they were good. Okay, so a lot of people on Earth actually do eat bugs, and there's totally nothing wrong with that. But here's what's more relevant to your life, most likely. They're going to pollinate most of what we eat. And we've talked about this word before. Remember, pollinate is to move pollen from one plant to another. So think of the bee movie. If you've seen that movie, excuse me. Bees go out and they collect the pollen from one flower, they fly it over to another flower, and then they fertilize it. By the way, that was my phone, I'm sorry. So when it happens, then that flower turns into a fruit. You can see here in the picture. It turns into oranges and strawberries and cranberries and carrots. It turns into celery and lettuce and eggplant and pineapples. And without bees, the only stuff we would be left with would be corn, potatoes, a little pineapple, maybe some oranges. These might be avocados, and I'm not sure what this is. So without bees, we would have very little fruit or vegetables in the world because we heavily rely on bees to pollinate and make flowers pregnant. We as humans, we just can't do it. So insects are totally bad. I'm not saying never ever kill a bug again, because I do kill them. I'm not gonna lie to you. They can spread diseases. Okay, we had a couple really bad diseases in the last probably 10, 12 years. We had the Zika virus. Mosquitoes carried that. That was a pretty nasty thing, came in quick, and a lot of pregnant people were told, like, don't travel anywhere. Malaria is very common in Africa. Okay, that's again a mosquito transferred disease. Ticks can transfer Lyme disease. Ticks are an arachnid. They actually have 8 legs, so they're related to spiders. So there's all sorts of diseases that we really don't want to spread, so killing a bug every now and then is not going to hurt anything. And they do destroy crops. Okay, so you can see this beetle here is eating away the leaf, and we can obviously know that this is going to be a problem because leaves are responsible for photosynthesis. Photosynthesis makes sugar. So if the plant doesn't have a good leaf, it can't make sugar and it's going to starve to death. So having too many bugs, that's why we spray plants with insecticides. It kills bugs so that the flowers and the leaves can still survive. Insects do have a defense system against predators. A lot of them actually have a lot of different tactics. So stinging. You might have gotten stung by a bee when you were young. Knock on wood, I think I only got stung once as a kid. So a stinger is a really good adaptation saying, hey, you better stay away from me because I got this sharp pointy thing on my butt and I'm not afraid to use it. So bees will sting in order to keep the rest of their family safe. Fire ants, obviously as the name infers or implies, that they can kind of shoot this fire out of their butt. And I'm not saying like the fiery gas that you're used to seeing. It's like a really hot chemical, so it's actually a liquid that shoots out. And then venom, there's a lot of bugs that can actually inject like a venom in you, spiders being the most common one that I can think of in my head. So stay away from bugs unless they're helping us out. And I got a minute and a half left, so let's blow through these guys. It's only one slide. So Echinodermata, you can see here that we're stuck with Patrick's star, so it is just about starfish on this last couple slides. The word echinoderms means spiny skin. So if you ever touch a starfish, it actually has these spines all around it. They have radial symmetry, we already know that. They have an endoskeleton, so they have what we have. Okay, their bones are on the inside. So if you would step on a starfish, the spines here would poke you, but you would feel squishy. Okay, so it's totally good. They do have a system of fluid-filled tubes. They use these, and you can see here the different canals here. They use those to move around, to get food, to get oxygen, to find mates. You can actually watch them kind of crawl on the bottom of the ocean, and I think the Jonathan Bird video shows it, and then the movie we're going to watch the second half of class, or at some point, we're going to be able to see it there as well. So there's a couple examples we need to know. Feather star, sand dollar, sea cucumber, the starfish. Here's your feather star. This is your brittle starfish. A sand dollar actually is a living organism, or was a living organism at one point. Sea cucumber, it looks really similar to the land cucumber, just with a butthole. And then the starfish here, the common starfish. So, if you have any questions, please see Miss Sore Eye or anyone else that's in the room, an adult. Go back to Google Classroom or look at the front board to figure out where you need to go next. And nice job taking your notes.